Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about the experience machine, which is a thought experiment designed to show that there's something wrong with hedonism and utilitarianism. Basically, that there's something wrong with the view that happiness is the ultimate goal that matters most to us, that is the thing we care about most. And if I can sum it up briefly, uh, the question we're going to ask in this video is, if you were given the opportunity to become a brain in a vat, would you do it if it meant you would have fun as a brain in a vat? If it meant you would enjoy it? That's the question we're going to ask. That's the question Robert Nozick's going to ask, although he does not phrase it that way. So the experience machine is a thought experiment by Robert Nozick, who is a consistent, or was, I believe he's dead now. He was a consistent critic of utilitarianism, and he raised multiple objections, two of which we're going to talk about today. This video, we'll talk about the experience machine, and we'll talk about something called the utility monster in the next video. But this experience machine thought experiment is meant to be an objection to utilitarianism and to hedonism, which is, it's like selfish utilitarianism. It's happiness is all that matters, but specifically my happiness is all that matters. That's hedonism. Utilitarianism is total happiness in the world is all that matters. And the experience machine is meant to show that happiness is not the thing that matters most to us, that happiness is not our ultimate goal. So, if happiness isn't the highest good or ultimate end, then the million argument for utilitarianism, the argument for the greatest happiness principle, starts to fall apart a little bit. If happiness isn't our ultimate goal, then it's really not clear why happiness should be the only thing that matters in morality. So, here's the thought experiment. Suppose that scientists can put you into the experience machine. And we talked about earlier in this course, we've talked about the brain in a vat thought experiment for external world skepticism, that you're a brain, you're being fed electrical signals that mimic the signals you'd get sent if you were walking around in the world in a human body. This is very similar. So much like the brain in a vat thought experiment, scientists will plug electrodes into your brain and feed your brain signals mimicking experiences, the signals that your senses would send to your brain if you were really having these experiences. So essentially, it's a big hallucination machine. But it'll feel real. You'll get the exact same signals that you would have been sent if you were really living these experiences. But you'll actually be lying in a tank with little electrodes plugged into your brain. But instead of being fed, whatever signals your senses are actually sending you, instead of the machine mimicking your day-to-day life as it did in the brain in a vat thought experiment, this time the machine can feed you whatever experiences you want to have, whatever you want to try or to be. It will send you the signals you would get if you were doing that. If you want to be a famous musician, if you want to be a rock star, it can send you the signals that make you think you are living the life of a rock star, that you are a rock star. You have a famous musician's life. If you want to be a wealthy socialite, if you want to be emperor of the world, whatever you want to be. I'm talking anything. Doesn't have to be something that has actually existed. You want to be emperor of the solar system and live in a sci-fi world with lightsabers? Great. That is fine. The experience machine will provide that. You can spend time with dead relatives if you want. You can live in historical societies. I saw a historian give a talk once saying they wish they could live in 1177 BC. I'm not sure why, but they wanted to do that. Great. If you want to do that, you can do that. whatever experience you want to have, whatever life you want to live, you can have that experience sent to you, sent to your brain in the experience machine. And to you, it will feel real. You will think that you are living this life. And if you don't want to pick, then the scientists can scientifically determine what would make you happiest. They can feed you whatever experience is guaranteed to make you the happiest. Whatever experience would make you personally as happy as possible, they will feed you that experience in the machine. So that means plugging into the experience machine guarantees that you will be as happy as possible. Whatever would make you happiest, you will have that experience in the experience machine. And you won't know you're in the experience machine. Once you're in, they will give you amnesia. You will not remember your past life. It will feel real and you will believe it is real. It won't be. You'll be floating in a vat, but you will feel that it's real. And you will be happier in the experience machine than in real life. You will feel more happiness in the experience machine than you will feel living your normal life. And that's by any means necessary. So if you think that some suffering is needed to fully appreciate life, or that you can't really appreciate the good without the bad, great. We can program some suffering into the experience machine program to help you fully appreciate life. We will give you just enough bad to let you fully appreciate the good. So whatever would make you absolute overall totally the happiest, that's what'll be programmed into the experience machine. You can, like a sitcom character, keep getting into zany scenarios and learning and growing a little bit each episode, but not enough that the zany misunderstandings stop happening. Like, if you need to have teachable moments every once in a while to like grow and develop as a person, if that's part of your idea of happiness, great. We'll plug that into the machine, and just like a sitcom, it'll loop and you'll learn lessons, sometimes the same lesson over and over again, for the rest of your life. And so this means, by any metric, any way of measuring pleasure that you can come up with, you will have more pleasure inside the experience machine than you could possibly have outside of the experience machine. You will have more pleasure and less pain inside the experience machine than you will have living your real day-to-day life. You will feel more fulfilled, you will feel more content, you will be more prosperous, etc., inside the machine than outside of it. You will have fewer stresses and worries and problems. Your life will have more pleasure and less pain in it inside the experience machine than your life has outside the experience machine. And so no matter what view of happiness you pick, no matter what you think it takes to maximize your pleasure and pain, if you think that you need some suffering to appreciate the bad, if you think that, it's just pure physical pleasurable sensations, that's what happiness is about. Mill's crazy when he thinks reading a book is pleasurable. If that's your picture of happiness, great. That's what you'll experience in the machine if you want. If you think Mill is absolutely right and you want no pain whatsoever, no suffering, no teachable moments, just pleasure with no pain, just intellectual pleasures and bodily pleasures, just candy and books, or whatever you think would make you happiest, that's what you'll feel. That's what you'll have in the experience machine. But whatever experience you end up with, you'll only feel like it's happening. It won't actually be happening. You'll really be asleep in a giant machine being fed a computer simulated dream, hallucinating all these experiences. But it will feel real to you. To you, there will be no difference between it happening in the experience machine and it happening in real life. But once you're in, you can't come out, ever. This is you from now on. You're in the experience machine. So, would you plug into the experience machine? Would you choose to plug into the experience machine? And I'll give you a second. Feel free to pause the video, think about it, take all the time you want, really give it some thought. What would you do? Ask yourself, what would I do in this scenario? Would I plug into the experience machine or would I not? Ask yourself that question. Pause the video if you need time, and then come back. And we'll talk about Nozick's answer, because Nozick thinks there's no way any of us would choose to plug into the experience machine. What are you, nuts? The brain in a vat skeptical scenario is a nightmare scenario that should make us worried that we don't have knowledge of the world. It's not like a vacation joyride. It's not good. It's terrifying. Of course, we would not choose to plug into the experience machine. Nozick thinks there's no way any of us would choose to plug into the experience machine. And Nozick thinks even if you ended up saying that you would, Nozick thinks, look, be honest. Your initial answer was no. Your gut reaction was no. If you're honest with yourself, your first thought was, oh God, no, I don't want to do that. And that's enough to prove my point. The fact that your gut reaction was no, thank you, absolutely not, is enough to prove my point. I just want to point out, this is not a direct quote. Nozick does not say, be honest, your initial answer was no, and that's enough to prove my point. But that's the gist of what he says. That's the overall message. That, look, your gut reaction was horror. You didn't actually want to be in this Black Mirror style, Twilight Zone, computer simulated hallucination, falsely believing that you were living this life while actually you were unconscious in a vat. That is a nightmare sci-fi hellscape scenario that none of us would voluntarily choose. And Nozick thinks that that shows that happiness is not all that matters to us. If Mill was right and happiness was really all that mattered to us, then of course we would choose to jump in the experience machine in a heartbeat, because we'll feel more happiness in the experience machine than we will in real life. The experience machine will make us happier. So if happiness were all that mattered to us, then we would choose to plug into the experience machine. So the fact that we wouldn't shows that we care about something beyond happiness. Because we would be objectively happier by any measure, by any metric. We would be happier in the experience machine than in the real world. And we still don't want to plug into the machine, according to Nozick. Therefore, being as happy as possible can't be all that matters to us. There's something else we care about, because there's something that keeps us here in the real world rather than going into the experience machine. I mean, also the fact that the experience machine doesn't exist. But even in the hypothetical scenario where it does, we don't want to go into the experience machine. So clearly there's something that we value more than happiness. There's something that makes us not want to go into the experience machine. There's something we would lose if we went into the experience machine that we will not trade for more happiness. Maybe it's truth or knowledge or some other sort of intellectual virtue, some kind of valuable, intangible thing. Truth, knowledge, whatever it is, we want it, and happiness doesn't outweigh it. More happiness is, in order for losing truth or knowledge or whatever it is not a trade we're willing to make. But if happiness was all we cared about, then of course we would make that trade. So the fact that we won't trade our existence in the real world for happiness in the experience machine shows that happiness isn't the thing we ultimately care about. And therefore, happiness can't be the only thing that matters in morality. There are other valuable ends, other valuable desires that we do in fact want that utilitarianism ignores. And so utilitarianism must be wrong, or at least Mill's justification for utilitarianism must be wrong. If Nozick is right, then happiness is not the thing that matters most to us in life. It is not the ultimate end. So Mill and other utilitarians are wrong if Nozick is right here. If happiness isn't the thing that matters most in life, then maybe utilitarianism is wrong. And there's another problem that we can point to with the experience machine. And this is a slightly different problem. This is going for utilitarianism itself rather than going for Mill's argument for utilitarianism. So here's the problem. Suppose, hypothetically, that there really were experience machines. Let's say we had enough for everybody. The way to maximize happiness in the world would be to plug everyone into an experience machine. Everyone. It would maximize happiness whether they wanted to plug in or not. Because once you're in the experience machine, you don't remember your life before the experience machine. You forget the real world. You think this is real and this is your whole life. So plugging people into the experience machine, regardless of whether they want to plug into the experience machine, will maximize happiness. Plugging people into the experience machine against their will would maximize happiness. So if utilitarianism is true, then it looks like the morally right thing to do is to force people into the experience machine whether they want to go or not. But that seems immoral. At the very least, it shouldn't be a moral obligation. It shouldn't be the morally best thing we could do. It does not seem like the morally best thing to do, to force people into a computer simulated hallucination against their will that forces them to forget everyone they've ever loved. Like that doesn't sound like a good thing. But if the experience machine existed and the experience machine maximizes happiness, then the way to maximize happiness, and therefore the morally best thing according to utilitarianism, is to kidnap everybody and force them into the experience machine whether they want to go or not. But that looks morally wrong. And if that's morally wrong, then utilitarianism gives us the wrong answer about morality. There are some actions, possible actions, hypothetical actions, but still, there are actions that produce the greatest total happiness and yet would be morally wrong to do. It would maximize the total happiness in the world to force everyone into an experience machine. And yet it would be morally wrong to force everyone into an experience machine. So utilitarianism, which says that something is morally right in proportion to how much happiness it produces, must be incorrect. Because the thing that produces the most happiness is not the morally best thing we could do in this scenario. And so utilitarianism must be false. If it would be morally wrong to force everyone into an experience machine, then utilitarianism gives the wrong answer about what's morally right and wrong. Because utilitarianism says it would be morally right to kidnap everyone and put them in an experience machine. So if that's not morally right, if it's morally bad, then utilitarianism gives us the wrong answer. But the whole point of utilitarianism is to tell us what's morally good and morally bad. It's a theory of morality. It is an answer to the question, what's morally right and what's morally wrong? If it gives us the wrong answer, then it's just a bad theory and we should reject it. And so utilitarianism is wrong if plugging everyone into the experience machine against their will would be morally wrong. And that is another problem for utilitarianism. So even if you personally thought, yeah, no, I would totally plug into the experience machine. That's absolutely what I would do. As long as you think kidnapping people and plugging them into the experience machine is morally bad, then there's still something wrong with utilitarianism. Then this thought experiment still poses a problem for utilitarianism, even if you personally wanted to plug into the experience machine. And so that is the experience machine objection to utilitarianism. It undermines the claim that we all want happiness and that is our ultimate goal. And it looks like it produces a hypothetical case where the thing that utilitarianism tells us is morally right would in fact be morally wrong. And it's that second kind of objection, a hypothetical action that utilitarianism says would be right, but is clearly morally wrong. That sort of objection is what we'll talk about in the next video, where we talk about the utility monster. So if you have any questions about the experience machine, please let me know, and I will do my best to help and answer your questions to the best of my abilities. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video, where we'll talk about the utility monster.